All right, welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy. Carl Jung's Black Books, Part 71, in which we will pick up right where Edward left off in Part 70, with reading Carl Jung's Black Books diary entries. We're up to late 1915, where he's beginning to work with the other side, the dead. He's beginning to talk to ghosts and stuff and use mediums and whatnot. I clarify, because the other side of what? He's been talking to the other side of something or other this whole time, presumably. What do you think? A little more light? Yeah. So, before we get to that, we're going to see if we can get a little bit of insight from these cards and rune about what we're going to read today. And if there is any connection, then surely Editor Edward will tell us about it later on after the reading. First, up top, we have Raido, also called journey, riding, carriage, refers to the soul after death. A journey charm. Well, we already can tell that that's on point. My dad's old Rider-Waite deck says, the Hanged Man. A youth is suspended by one foot from a T-cross of living wood. His arms folded behind his back, together with his head, form a triangle with the points downward. His legs form a cross. Divinatory meaning: in spiritual matters, wisdom, prophetic power, a pause in one's life, suspended decisions, self-surrender. Sounds like a party. Leads to the transformation of the personality. Material temptation is conquered. If you can't beat it, join it. As for the Golden Dawn Ritual Tarot by Chicken Sandra Tabitha Cicero, we have the Prince of Swords, Prince of the Chariots of the Winds. Not the same winds as in the wind-releasing pose, where you bring your knee up to your chest, or both knees. Quote, a winged king with a winged crown seated in a chariot, drawn by archfays or archons, or archfairies, represented as winged youths. Skip a bit, Brother Maynard. The Prince of Swords symbolizes the Vav Air Force of Tetragrammaton in the element of air. Since he is a synthesis of the mental world of the Kabbalah, with the element of the intellect, he is therefore a perfect representation of the human mind. Next we have the Ace of Cups from my old Celtic tarot deck. Says here, the Celtic cross symbolizes the early Christian faith, which helped inspire the Holy Crusades, and the legend of the Holy Grail. The Grail was a sacred chalice, a symbol of life and the divinity of Christ. The chalice became the focus of much speculation and romantic imagination. The Ace of Cups is a symbol of the divine consciousness of God, which can be reached. The card also represents the element of water in its most sacred and original form, the fertility and productivity associated with water is both spiritual and creative. It evokes the intuitive and psychic energies. The soft colors in the diagram show the subtlety of the forces operating. The imagination is itself a very subtle faculty which can raise the consciousness to higher levels. The Ace of Cups also signifies the illumination of the beauty of nature. Great joy and contentment. The search for happiness is resolved and a new understanding reached. A powerful insight into life itself reveals some simple truths. Birds in the family. Births, not birds, birds. Anyway, well, if this is accurate, then we're in for a good reading today, I'd say. And for the White Eagle Medicine Wheel card, we have Grandfather Spirit Warrior. Wise to advise courage and strength. Spirit Warrior is going to great length, there to help where danger treads, following the right path we're led. The magical weapon or item that Carl Jung is gifted with in this, diary entry or two, is parry. Reduces damage. When another creature damages you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction and expend one superiority die to reduce the damage by the number you roll on the superiority die plus your dexterity modifier. Well, let's find out what that is. And it's an 8. So we've got a modifier, a dexterity. Let's see if we can stick that in front. 8. Okay, that's new. And finally, we have the villain of today's story, the Titivilus. Titivilus? Is it Titivilus or Titivilus? D&D connoisseurs. I didn't say nerds. I host a podcast called The Esoteric Nerd, so if I call you a nerd, just know I'm not using it like an Australian or an American in the 80s or anyone else who would mean anything negative. Anyway, so it says here, medium, fiend, devil, lawful evil. The worst kind. Frightful word, titivilus, targets one creature he can see within 10 feet, blah, 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 dash action, teleport, twisting winds. Well, it sounds like he's got his work cut out for him today, but based on the signs, especially these two, I would say, he's going to be all right. And since we know he came out of it and became the Carl Jung we all know and love, I guess, then yeah, I think it's going to be fine, but it's going to be an interesting adventure, an interesting journey. So I suppose we can get to it. But first, I hope you don't mind, I am going to sacrifice a little bit of the pure silence. I'm going to put this on low. Yeah, that's not too bad, I don't think. Just because it's a bit of a warm day and I'm wearing multiple layers of robes and I'm in the tropics, which is a bit of a silly thing to do, I admit. I've never claimed not to be a bit silly. Is there anything before we get started? Let me think. Our incense is patchouli. I'm not an expert in this sort of thing, but I think that whatever Carl Jung talks about, the patchouli will help to manifest to physical, tangible form here in my office. So I'll have to do banishings afterward, or burn some sage or something. It is December 7th, 1915. And Carl Jung has sat down with his feather or quill or ink. I don't... Can we tell? It's not a ballpoint pen. Because for one thing, it's 1915. So, anyway, it doesn't matter what kind of pen he has. Let's just read what he wrote, shall we? Come here, you dead. Why did you stand behind me, shade? What did you want to say? Quote, I wanted to tell you that the evening of all days is near. End quote. What? What do you mean? Does that mean death? Quote, neither death nor life, but probably shadow. End quote. Shadowy existence? Spirituality? Non-reality? Quote, it is evening when the sun sets. A day, 2 days, many days have come to an end. End quote. What does it mean? Quote, the light of day, itself a shadow of the sun, goes down and illuminates the ones below, the shadows. End quote. What is it? Speak clearly. Here is my blood. Oh, is it that lady? Oh, maybe I'm doing the wrong voice. Quote, life becomes a shadow, and the shadow enlivens itself. The shadow that is greater than you. Do you think that your shadow is your sun? Let's take a moment. Hang out with that one. No, I don't think so. Speaking personally, as one who doesn't have a son. So that's S-O-N. Anyway, it is small at midday and fills the skies at midnight. End quote. Oh, your shadow is small at midday and fills the skies at midnight. Mwah. Oh, Carl, bringing us such poetry in such an unlikely place and way. Okay. End quote. You can put that in a meme. Carl Jung meme. A little picture of Carl Jung with his pipe. Your shadow is small at midday. I mean, you can leave out the context that it's a ghost talking to him, but he's hearing it and writing it down. I think if a ghost tells you something and you hear it and write it down, technically, legally speaking, it's yours. You can copyright that. You can put it in a song. Nobody's coming after you. At least, not in a legal sense. Sorry, I'll just keep. So you introduce the sun, you shade, who lives under the trees. Apparently it's a different sun than Carl has an astral sun that is the one that his mind jumps to when someone refers to his son while he's doing this self-hypnosis thing or whatever is going on. The sun, the terrible, the mighty, is he the spirit that the heavens pour out? Or is he the soulless worm that the earth bore? Yes. I know it's an either or. Which is it? This or this? The answer, I'd say, is yes. But I ain't sure, Anima. Anyway, oh heaven, oh sinister womb. Ha, ha. Let's put that up on the big board. Oh sinister womb. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Dark Mother vibe. Do you want to suck the life out of me? Oh, here we go again, Carl. You and your sucking. Out of me for the sake of what? Oh, that means he's sitting with his cousin, the medium. Interesting. Are they alone? Who's taking the notes? Is it Carl? Carl's sitting there writing this down while he's talking to his cousin who's sitting in a chair in front of him with her eyes rolled back and going, so how much do you want to suck me? You know, kids, we played our games too in our day, 1915 when you're 30, playing psychiatrist, like the kids say, playing doctor. Never mind, Carl. You want to suck the life out of me for the sake of one or many shades? Should humanity thus completely go to waste for divinity? That's the end of that entry. And again, a banger, that line. Oh, I just want to take a moment and look back and revisit those very poetic lines. There were 3. the midday. Your shadow is small at midday. So the line is actually, if you're quoting it, it is small at midday and fills the skies at midnight. So you can substitute the shadow, your shadow, our shadow, however you want to use that to paraquote, misquote, quote-ish Carl Jung for your own purposes. The next one was, "O sinister womb, and should humanity thus completely go to waste for divinity?" Shades of romantics. Gather ye rosebuds while you may, All right. Anyway, so 2 days later, it's December 9th, 1915. Carl Jung sits down at his table and writes, "Should I live with ghosts instead of with the living?" Hey, Carl, it's World War I. All the cool kids are living with ghosts. Go for it. You'll be all right. I mean, I'm from the future, so I know who went nuts and who went nuts in a profitable way. Must all the longing for living men belong to you, the dead? You can long for living men. Nobody's stopping you. No, I mean, if you keep it to yourself, inside voice, there's inside voice, and there's inside thoughts, Outside thoughts can be inside voice. Outside voice is like, there's layers, you see, of privacy. There's what you post on Instagram, and there's... All right. Should a living person give his life for your sake? You who did not live the eternal? Or are there no men for me? Or am I not to give myself to my fellow men? Go for it, but write it down. I want to hear how it goes. Speak, you mute shadows, who stand at my door and beg for my blood. Carl, when you tell a horde of ghosts to come beg for your blood, don't be too surprised if they do it, and note that you can give them other different commands too, and they'll probably do that too. They're not too bright, we were the ones with got all this spongy synaptic stuff going on. They're kind of like, what? Oh, you look familiar. They can borrow our space, and never mind. This is allegedly, in my opinion, I guess. You see what? You see? This is still in quotes. Okay. Oh no, this is in quotes. So all that was Carl. Beg for my blood. Quote, "You see, or do you still not see? What the living do with your life? They fritter it away." It's true. But with us you live yourself, since we belong to you. We belong to your invisible following and community. Explains a lot. Do you believe that the living see you? Sorry to be doing like 3 different voices for this one shade. I don't know. They see only your shadow, not you. Servant, bearer, vessel. Oh, I love it when they talk dirty. End quote. How you hold forth, you herald and interpreter of the dark? Question mark. Am I at your mercy? Should day no longer shine for me? Should I become a shadow with a living body amongst you, invisible ones? You are formless and beyond my grasp. And you emanate the coldness of the grave. Calm down, Carl. To let myself be buried alive? Too soon, it seems. I must die first. Do you have the honey that pleases my heart? Then the fire that warms my hands? I think they shuffled that off as kind of the point. They're ghosts, but I don't know. It depends on how schizophrenic you are, I suppose. There's just enough, and then there's too much. Sorry. What are you, you mournful shadows? You specters of children, show yourselves. Come across. For you silent generation boomers out there, you might be giggling. Everyone else is like, what? Why do you always want my blood? Truly, you are even worse than men. Men give little, yet what do you give? Do you make the living, the warm beauty, the joy? Or should all this go to your gloomy Hades? What do you offer in return? What? Now I want to know. Enough of these buffooneries. End quote. Carl wants to know what he's going to get out of this. Impetuous one, stop! You take our breath away. We are shadows. Become a shadow, and you will grasp what we give. Sorry about the snorting. End quote. I do not want to die to descend into your darkness. It's fair. It's fair. End quote. You need not die. You must only let yourself be buried. End quote. Carl, maybe you want to clarify. Maybe they're using the term buried to mean something other than what you're visualizing. In hope of resurrection? No joking now. Quote, you suspect what will happen. Triple bolts before you and invisibility. To hell with your longings and feelings. At least you do not love us. So we will cost you less dearly than the men who roll in your love and abuse you and have you make a fool of yourself. End quote. Creepy, but good point. It's a creepy good point. That's what that is. Quote, my dead one, I think you are speaking my language. No, end quote. Maybe this is the ghost still talking. My dead one, I think you are speaking my language. Men do love, as do you. What an error. You can wait until it will be delivered to you. You coax men into megalomania that you cannot deflate and to which you fall victim. To your own creation. It is not possible. Do you hear at last? End quote. And it is not possible is underlined. All right. The ghost is here to play. It grieves me, pains me, howls at me. Like that. I feel a great longing. Everything soft complains. My womanly heart yearns. All right, Carl. Seems like you were doing better with your in 1915 than 1930. What happened, Carl? Did you absorb your anima and call yourself the Mana persona and do some other stuff? I don't know. I like the early Carl Jung personally. I'm a fan. Sorry. Quote, that belongs to us. What do you want with it amongst men? End quote. Amongst men, whip and a sharp blade and herbs and the plumb line in the cupboard. Something wrong with the Ouija board, Carl. Happens. And the rifle behind the door. End quote. But I don't want to suffocate. Quote, then take a breath from time to time, but don't forget to close the lid again. End quote. Do you mean human air? Quote, no, divine air, and afterward back in the box. End quote. What the hell? The Pope is better off. Quote, exactly. We need a Pope. You know, someone infallible, who has everything he needs, who does not need anyone since he draws things down from heaven, and since the angels give him bread. That is what your beloved fellow men want, not us. Of course, if men were different, or you. But you know, double-sized calamity. By the way, what the hell? By the way, men could also denature themselves for the sake of the Pope. Just wait and see. The Pope still won't leave the Vatican. I feel like I should be laughing, like these are jokes, but I don't get them. But it's part of the voice. I feel like I should do a laugh. End quote. Sonu, if you're watching, there was some funkiness. This is page 249, volume 5. There was some funkiness there. With there was a quote, a bunch of stuff, and then another opening quote, just randomly, like, oh, you remember wearing quotes, guys, right? But in the middle of the same paragraph, like, it's not necessary. All right. And then there's a line. At that moment, another shot interrupted. What is going on? Quote, quickly pull yourself down into the human. So what? The horse could not help neighing. Nothing of importance, merely sentiments. Instead of ceremonies, there are only sentiments. End quote. Underline ceremonies. Carl Jung's going through a ceremonies phase, perhaps? Oh, those are just sentiments. In here, in the dark, with you and your candle and your book, we have got ceremonies. Yes. What ceremonies? This is just what was needed. Where should the heart go in that case? Ceremonies? You are crazy. Would you let me be mortified into solemnity? To live as a wax doll? That's impossible. Quote, but everything cries out for it. What do you have the holy books for? You are dumping them. You still ought to be writing them. You utterly lack solemnity. End quote. Ridiculous trickery. I'm no parson. I'm no parson. Where are the institutions? Quote, create them. Dig deep. Everything is ready. But work on the book of the secrets and the teachings. End quote. What's it to you? Maybe people like comedy, but not me. You can see through this carnival. How can this do any good? Quote, it's very useful to us. We rise in esteem and get to live with you. End quote. Damned trickery. You would like to make a fool of me. Quote, not at all. We wish for solemnities. End quote. Should I play act? Laughable dreck? Quote, be a shade, not a man. That way others can turn into men in front of you. Then they will glorify you as the highest man. End quote. And I will go to hell. Oh, Carl. It's just a little fun. Quote, who cares about you? You will die as a dog, a good, loyal dog, mourned by you, but please, no sentiments. End quote. If you're right, then I've lived completely awry. Quote, completely awry. You have suffered from canine wagging, canine snarling, canine licking. Stupid style. This will change. Solemnity, papal dignity. That is what is demanded. End quote. Enough. I'm freezing. And that's the end of that entry. Ooh. Ooh, there was another good line. Where was it? Stupid style with an exclamation point. So we got some memorable lines out of this one. Let's put up all the memorable lines. Can you see them? Is there room? I can't remember them all, and I don't want to go looking for them, so I'm going to let Editor Edward do that. All right. If you wanted to pause that, write it down. Okay, let's bring up the cards, and hey, Editor Edward.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, you?
That's good. I'm doing all right. I just finished reading.
I know, of course.
It's silly. So, I don't, at the moment, remember what I read or what the cards were, but I know if I know you, then I know that you're at a point in time and space and mental space and preparedness to be able to answer this question. And this question is there any connection that you can find between any of these 7 figures around me and what I've just read?
Maybe a little bit, a little less than usual. Let's see. Let me get my notes. So, the rune Rado, journey, riding carriage, the soul after death, a journey charm. The beings or being, the shade, the ghost, whatever it is he's talking to. They're on a journey. I mean, Carl's on a journey. He's still alive. But I think he's vicariously going on the journey with whatever this is he's talking to. Then moving on to the Rider Waite, the youth suspended, spiritual matters, wisdom, prophetic. So some things that came to mind. There wasn't any like exact fits very much in this one, but the should humanity thus completely go to waste for divinity seemed like a question one might have while hanging from Odin's tree. Should I live with ghosts instead of with the living? Should I become a shadow with a living body? Should the sun no longer shine for me? This all felt very Hanged Man. Now, here's an interesting thought that actually just occurred to me. It's not in my notes. Is that the Hanged Man is the tarot trump, the major arcana, which corresponds with the letter Mem, which is water. I mean, it's the spirit of the primal waters is the title of that card. But the Ace of Cups also is a very watery, like, 100% water. The meaning itself is water, but they're different. The Hanged Man versus the Ace of Cups, but perhaps they're not so different, at least today for Carl Jung. I don't know, just a thought. The Prince of Swords, heir of air, the perfect representation of the human mind. Well, there's a lot of water and air, and it seems like Carl is taking a very airy approach to a watery situation, but then he says things that are very watery. In other words, for those who don't speak the vernacular, airy of the nature of air in this context that I'm using it means mental thoughts, the head, where the heart, where water is emotional, heart-oriented, emotionally oriented. So yeah, there's a lot of air and water, a lot of carbonated water and rainy air, anyway. So things that came to mind, do you think that your shadow is your sun? Do you think that the shadow is your sun? I don't know why that came to mind for Prince of Swords. And just the fact that there are so many good quotes is very mind, the air of air. Also, the phrase that came to mind, the astral seeks to deceive as well as to enlighten. The astral can be associated with air, but it has a little bit of a watery thing. Generally, when we talk about like air and thinking and things like that, it's more of the nature of Mercury, where the astral is more of the nature of Luna, but the astral triangle includes Mercury and Venus. I don't know, never mind. Just forget I said all that. Take a breath from time to time, but don't forget to close the lid again. And he says, human air? They said, no, divine air. So that's very interesting. The Vav in the Yod He Vav He that the Prince of Swords corresponds to is divine air. So there's something. The Ace of Cups, feeding blood to the lady, I wrote here. Poetry, yeah, I mean, water and air together. I thought of poetry like the ability to express through air things that come from the water is itself poetry. One kind of poetry. Oh, sinister womb. No, there's nothing sinister about this. Where's the ace? Is it here? The Ace of Cups. There's nothing really sinister about that, but it came to mind since the grail, the chalice, also symbolizes, as indirectly alluded to. By the way, special thanks to Amanda Sage at the Hive Arts Gallery. I assume this was for that. I filmed the first of the tarot shows. So the Nathan, the King Bee of the Hive Art Studio, made a tarot-themed show and had all the artists go and paint tarot cards. And then I guess it did really well, so they've been doing it every year ever since. So they must be on like the 13th tarot. They must have come up with multiple decks by now. So that this image that popped up earlier, that's from Amanda Sage, and I'll put a link to her, art in the description. Anyway, so do you have the honey that pleases my heart? Came to mind. My womanly heart yearns came to mind. All of that for the Ace of Cups. And Grandfather Spirit Warrior. So this, I think that the ghosts, and we know a little bit from book 1 of the Black Books that Carl Jung's going to write the 7 sermons to the dead, and it's going to make all the spirits like quiet, and then he can move on to the next phase of his journey again. Anyway, so I think that they want him to be Grandfather Spirit Warrior. They're asking him to. They sing, "We need a pope. Work on your holy books, work on your sermon, work on this kind of thing." They're telling him. And then as far as the D&D stuff, as most often, I don't know. Like it just. He's down there parrying, and he's up against some fiendish devil that's going psh, psh. But I don't know. I don't think I found much in the D&D stuff below. But that's what I got for today.
Thank you, Editor Edward. Well, I don't know if that was good, because, as you know, I'm in the past relative to him. He's in the past relative to you. You're in the eternal now. I am in the eternal now with you. But in this moment of eternal now, I am doing something else. And yet this moment of eternal now, in which I'm speaking to you and being recorded, is also part of the eternal now that is ever unfolding. I don't know. If you can get up into the 5th dimension, then that shit makes sense, and it kind of like makes the emotions all weird and wacky. It doesn't quite like make them go away. It just kind of reorganizes them or recontextualizes them. Because you're like, oh, I'm really sad to be missing the stuff that's on that side of the line relative to the point in which my toe is connecting to the line, as opposed to the ones that are after that, because I can't shake their hand anymore. But it's all there present in front of you just as much as anything else. But it's all about the now, Anyway, What am I talking about? I don't know. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I hope the music was good, Editor Edward. I'm speaking to you in the past relative to the one that was just talking about the cards and shit. Because I'm assuming that you'll have already selected the music by then. Anyway, I think that's about it for today. Next time is going to be Pymander on Buddhist Books podcast. But when we get back to chicken philosophy, because I'm doing a that's what I've decided, 2 CP to every 1 BB. When we come back to chicken philosophy after Pymander does Tipitaka 173 tomorrow, I assume, it'll be Edward reading the Nag Hammadi. That's fun. And well, I guess until then, I hope you have a wonderful, happy Holy Friday, March, whatever it is, 15th or something. Happy Eclipse and happy Holi from India. It's the one with the colors. People throwing colors at each other. It's fun. I'll put some holy stuff at the end for the end screen and a link to something. One of my playlists. I don't know which one. All right. Until next time.